This information you are about to hear and perhaps view, these are not necessarily the thoughts or the ideas of Gary C.Clement or the Gary Clement Radio Show podcast. We are in no way, shape, or form affiliated with the parties this story is about or was interviewed for. Parts of this content may not be owned by or the property of the Gary Clement Radio Show podcast, G2 Network Media, or any other company we are affiliated with, and this information is strictly the opinion of those being interviewed. This content is for information purposes only, and although we may make reference to various news stories, we share our own independent beliefs about the content and provide our own opinions. Please enjoy the information. Hi, this is Gary Clement, and welcome to the Gary Clement Radio Show and Podcast. Today, our guest brands himself as a jack of all trades. His areas of expertise are politics, government, living off the grid, fitness, technology, cooking, firearms, the MMA, nutrition, and so many other things. Please help me welcome Mr. Russ Farnsworth. How are you, sir?
I'm well, thank you.
Great. Okay, so first of all, just tell us about who you are, or your schooling, your upbringing. Talk a little bit about yourself, please.
Well, I was adopted. So I had a kind of a strange early family life, but I was adopted as an infant and don't really remember any of my biological family, those early years or early months, I guess. And I grew up in a very small rural town in Northern California. So that is, kind of interesting. I went to a really good school. It was a very small community, and everybody kind of knew each other. So there was a kind of an interesting upbringing there. There was only 300 people in our town, and I went to the Butteville Elementary School, which was about, I think, 85 kids at the time, and that was, kindergarten through 12th grade. So it was a very small school, and definitely in sort of a unique experience with my education.
I see. Okay. Now, a lot of people have horror stories when they say adoption. It sounds like you had a pretty good, family that adopted you.
It was pretty good. We had our issues, but for the most part, my parents were really responsible and took care of everything. And, we had a stay-at-home mom, which was pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Very good. Very good. So these brothers, did you have brothers and sisters, I guess, as far as,
Yeah, I had one of each that I grew up with.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So out of all these things I previously spoke about, here earlier about, who you are as a person, just what's your best subject of interest, I guess, where do you, I guess, what do you specialize in? Put it like that.
Well, I've always kind of had an interest in politics, and I delve into that subject pretty deeply. So I'm pretty well informed about things that are going on in this country, and I definitely like to talk about that. I've also just had some kind of wild life experiences that are interesting to talk about. Sometimes I get brought onto a podcast to talk about my experience living off the grid, where I ran into some very hostile neighbors who, tore up the road to my place to prevent me from being able to live there. And that's been an ongoing, ordeal for a few years, and it's currently in a lawsuit. So it's been kind of a wild experience with that.
I see. Okay. Because I see here, it says that, you're a world traveler. You just tell us about some of the places you've had the opportunity to travel to and, some of your experiences, please.
Sure. I think, I've been to Mexico a few times. That would have been my first international travel. And then I met a guy through a mutual friend, and he's an Australian and was going to take a trip to Thailand. And I kind of always wanted to go to Thailand, had never been. So I ended up kind of tagging on with him and his couple of friends. And that was a great time. Kind of a 2-week party pretty much in the tropics. And then I went to visit my friend there in Australia, And then I've been back to Australia and also to Thailand and to China.
Hmm.
So China was definitely interesting, seeing all the smog there and getting a little taste of Chinese culture, just sort of how people behave in crowds and things like that. Is certainly different than in the United States. So that was interesting. And then I got to, try a little Chinese food as well. So,
Okay.
enjoying the food of the culture is always a big
I see.
draw for me.
I see. Okay. So, would you say then that you rather, I guess you could say, you are a little bit more in tune to Chinese food than you are to American food?
Uh, well, not really. I mean, I enjoy Chinese food. I don't eat it very often. And I guess most of the Chinese food in the United States isn't very authentic from what I hear.
Hmm.
Um, so I just, enjoy going to a country and being able to try their food in its authentic,
I see.
style rather than an Americanized version of it.
I see. Okay. Well, what are some of your other experiences, that you had the opportunity to be part of, like I said, in your travels?
Uh, let's see. In Thailand, they had some crocodile shows, which were interesting. I guess all the crocodiles in the entire country are in captivity.
Hmm.
And so you can go to these farms where they have bunches of crocodiles, and they tote them around by the tail and drag them around all over the place, and then they'll the crocodiles sit there with their mouths agape, and the trainer will put his head inside the gaping mouth and do things like that. And then there was a snake charmer kind of guy there too. So that was definitely something you don't see in the United States. And I got to feed tigers in Thailand, and they bring you this baby tiger and give you a bottle, and you can feed a baby tiger. That was pretty fun.
Very interesting. Wow. Okay. Now, politics in America are very, very different. I'm pretty sure from a lot of countries that you've been to. Okay. Uh, what with everything that's going on and stuff in our news and stuff here now, what's something that that you are really just keeping up with right now?
Well, there's something that really is kind of concerning me at the moment, and that is the Federal Reserve and their push to keep raising interest rates in order to drive down inflation. And I've been hearing some people say that it's not even going to work, but putting that aside, it's also estimated to cause about 10 million people to lose their jobs. And I think that the people who run everything, these oligarchs that are all in the Fed and the Wall Street banks and in government, they want to keep worker wages low. And that's really the push behind this raising of the interest rate, is to keep employment higher. Well, or employment is extremely low right now, so they want to drive it up, and then that will make people less able to go out and fetch a living wage for their job. There'll be more competition within the job market, and that will bring wages down.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
I'm really concerned about that, and I don't know if the whole country is really in tune with that, and it's going on right now, kind of as we speak. And worker wages in this country have been flat for decades, and they need to be raised up. And so I think this is something that we really need to have a response to. Like, the entire country needs to respond and with one voice.
Right, right. Because, like I said, food prices are up. Gas and fuel prices are up. Just
Yeah.
everything is like you said, just through the roof right now.
Yes.
And so,
Yeah. Workers are getting clobbered, and there's not really a lot of response from government to try to help them. And I definitely think that workers need a break. We need a little bit of a comfort zone. Most people can't afford a $400 unforeseen expense, and that's not a good position for our country to be in, where people are living on the edge like that.
Right. I understand. You're absolutely right. Right. Okay. Cool. So, what do you dislike about this current administration in regards to who's in the White House?
Hmm. Well, Joe Biden is definitely older, and it's showing at times. So, his age is one factor. I think it's probably a bad idea that he's running again, although, and I've never been a fan of Joe Biden. I really just, him and his politics, I've never agreed with very much. If I was just judging him on his presidency, I would think that he's doing a pretty decent job of just holding things together. I wouldn't have expected a really great presidency and big ideas that would make me happy to see occur in government. I wasn't expecting any of that from the Biden administration, but at least he is kind of holding things together. Like I said, keeping employment high, which is good. Um, I think he's conceding a little bit too much to the big oil demands.
Hmm.
He had really promised to not drill in some key areas in the country, and he ended up going back on those promises. So I am not happy about that. I definitely think we need to be very proactive about getting the country off of fossil fuels and to really address climate change. So I think he's not doing as much as he needs to be doing there.
I see. Okay. Now, what do you dislike about the Trump administration?
Uh, Pretty much everything, I think. I'm not sure that there's really one good thing I can say about the Trump administration. And, during the campaign, Trump did have some ideas that I think were good and were things the government should be doing.
Hmm.
Um, Modifying the 14th Amendment would be one of them, that we have that provision that says anybody can come to this country, and if they give birth to a child here, that child is then, kind of the responsibility of the government for the rest of its life. And I don't think that's wise or really fair to a lot of people. I mean, the people, the parents of that child don't even need to be here permanently or legally, and it's still the case. So that's, I think, not anything that Americans should have to accept.
I see. I see.
And so I think it would have been great if he would have done something with that, but I didn't expect him to. And of course, once he was elected president, he never mentioned it again.
Hmm. Right. There's a lot that he didn't mention again.
Yeah.
Yeah. But okay, so when it comes to our Supreme Court in this country, how do you feel about that?
I call them the supremely corrupt court, and I'm not happy about anything that's going on there. Ketanji Brown Jackson is pretty amazing, it seems like, and she's fresh in there, so hopefully she doesn't have some of the issues that the other justices have. But the revelations that have come out in the past couple of weeks about Clarence Thomas and um, John Roberts, I think, really requires a very deep investigation into all of the activities in the Supreme Court, and it requires a response in litigation to hold them more accountable.
Hmm.
And they're going to push back on this, we shouldn't let them. I mean, the things that they have failed um, to disclose it's a really big issue, and it can affect their judgment on the court. And so we can't allow that to continue. We have to have a response to that and make sure that our Supreme Court going forward is working on our behalf, and that they're recusing themselves from cases that they shouldn't be. Justices are recusing themselves from cases they shouldn't be involved in, and that they're not being bribed by special interests.
Right. I hear you. I got you. So overall, it looks like right now, our government looks like old folks' home in a sense. What do you think?
It definitely does.
Mm-mm.
And I'm 51 now, so I'm I'm not trying to hate on older people because I'm rapidly getting there myself.
Right.
And certainly people can still have great ideas. Even being older, you can be in good physical health and have a lot of stamina even in your older years. But a lot of our politicians do not. I think they're failing to meet that.
Mm-hmm.
And Dianne Feinstein
Mm-hmm.
specifically, is just, she's really, her absence from the Congress is affecting the Democrats' ability to get things done, especially getting judges confirmed.
Mm-hmm.
So she should have resigned before her health got to a point where she was going to have a negative impact on things.
Right. I understand. I hear you. Okay. Another big issue that's actually getting ready to like really take off in this country and possibly not cause problems is AI or artificial intelligence. Tell me your thoughts there.
Uh, yeah, it's kind of scary to think about what could potentially happen. And I just listened to a discussion yesterday that was kind of interesting, and the guest kind of brought up, we're going to have this thing that's really more powerful than a human being, at least intellectually speaking. And will we be able to control it forever and never let it get out of hand? And so I think that's still a question, that if we come up with AI and really start to implement it in places, will we always be able to control it and not allow it to do something that we don't intend for it to do? And so I think until that question can really be answered, um, we have to be very, very careful. And I don't believe that we're in any danger right now that any AI product is out there available and ready, able to cause mayhem. But that's certainly something that we have to be cognizant of in the future and not allowing that to take place.
Mm-hmm.
And then another challenge with it is you've got all these different countries. There was that product CRISPR that allowed people to make genetic alterations to whatever, and including human beings. And apparently somebody in China actually did. And again, someone in China or somewhere else might create an AI product that is available and is, able to do something that we don't want it to do. And we don't really have control over those countries. So it is a big concern and something people should be paying attention to. But also with AI, they are very powerful tools, and they can really improve our society if we use them correctly.
Right, I see. Because I was listening, I think a couple of days ago to, and I'm not sure if it was on CBS or what, but anyway, they actually had Bill Gates, from Microsoft, whatnot, on talking about AI, and he's afraid of it. He's basically afraid of, like you say, what the capabilities and stuff are, and he was actually just saying that our government does not know the full capabilities of artificial intelligence. And so
Yeah.
they're afraid. So everybody is like, on pins and needles right now, trying to see exactly, like I said, how far this technology will allow us to go, what people will do with it, and I think, because it's like once you have open AI, then you have possibilities of people whom are geniuses that can create whatever, and nobody really will know anything about it until we have mass, I guess, mass shootings or something that we can't, really put a finger on. Just all kinds of stuff could happen. So.
Yes. Yeah. It's definitely can be a lot of bad outcomes from AI. And another thing that I think is kind of being driven by AI technology are these deep fake videos.
Mm-hmm.
And when people can make those where you're not going to be able to tell the difference between a politician saying something and a deep fake, it's really going to have a bad effect on our politics, because people are going to believe some of the things that they hear or see. They're going to see the video right in front of their eyes. So
Mm-hmm.
they're going to believe a lot of this stuff, and people are going to be able to cause a lot of confusion within society, and that is never a good thing.
Mhm. So now tell me your opinion on this. Should we have constraints on the internet? Who can access, who can't, the different things and stuff you're are you like able to access, like TikTok and stuff like that? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I I don't think the ban on TikTok is a good idea. I think that any American company can harvest as much data from people as TikTok could potentially. And I don't think there's really anything that would stop a US company from selling that data to China or to anybody else. And so to think that Chinese or American companies couldn't exploit our data in the same way that TikTok could, I think is wrong. I believe that that's wrong. And so simply banning TikTok is not going to solve a problem. And it will hurt a lot of people. I know some people who maybe for years tried to establish themselves on a platform like YouTube and never really got traction. But then for some reason, perhaps better algorithms or whatever, they moved to TikTok and then all of a sudden they took off and now they're doing very well on that platform. So it's certainly unfair to them after they've built this, some of them are making money, so they've built a business on the TikTok platform. I think it would be very, very unfair to kind of pull that out from under them.
I see. I see. I got you. Okay. So it used
Now,
to.
as far as people accessing the internet, I think it's very, very important that everybody does have equal access. A couple of years ago, or a few years ago, the FCC chairman kind of killed net neutrality. And so far, the internet hasn't really changed much. But I believe there now is the door open where if companies wanted to start slowing down certain traffic or preventing certain people from accessing certain parts of the internet, that they now could probably do that because of that change at the FCC. And I think that's a very bad thing. I think everybody should, have an equal space or equal access to the internet. And I think that's very, very important. For me, I see the internet as being this amazing tool. A lot of us in this country are very frustrated with government, and we feel like we need to have a revolution of some kind. And to me, that the internet is what would allow that to actually happen, that we could share ideas online and we could all bring each other into the same thinking about how we address our politics, and then we could make a change that would really, really influence our government. And so the internet is absolutely key to that. And once you start talking about limiting people's influence in certain spaces on the internet or limiting their access to it, it's going to be a disruption to that. And we, the people, are not going to be able to use the internet as a tool to influence government the way it stands that we could do it now.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. I remember years ago where it was like some kind of rule or law or something that the FCC, they would automatically get involved or whatnot if there was a company. See, for instance, like CBS, or CBS, like I said, they had their prime stake or whatnot in most of your. They had their own media companies and stuff in which they were involved in, and then ABC had Disney and so on and so forth, and and you could own, like, say for instance, two or three TV stations, two or three newspapers, such and such like that or whatnot for a long time. And even at those rates and stuff years ago, where one of those outlets may say, like, what, the Washington, the Washington, big Washington newspaper or something might have had, say, subscribers in the neighborhood of what, like 2 million or something. Then they have a couple of other outlets that may service 2 or 3 million or something, and their numbers and stuff stay kind of like that with all the different companies. But see, now you've got like YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. All those are like what, 2, 3 billion people for each one of those or something. So it's a
Yeah.
totally different world. So when it comes to being able to own, say, for instance, like, a couple of TV stations now, something like TikTok and YouTube or Facebook or whatnot, and have all that control over people, or being able to do that. What do you think about that in a terms of being to have that kind of power, that kind of control? What do you think about that?
Yeah. Now you bring up some very, very important points. And at the moment, all the different users on TikTok and YouTube and any other platform are kind of their own little broadcaster. So the problem is different than the corporate media, where one person can buy a bunch of different media outlets, newspapers, televisions, and radio stations, and then try to broadcast the same message to their whole, to a giant audience.
Mm-hmm.
So the internet really sort of levels the playing field and gives everybody the ability to broadcast to a pretty sizable audience. But at the same time, you've got then the owners of that platform are able to control what goes on in the platform. So we've seen things that if Twitter didn't like something that somebody was posting about, they could alter the algorithm so that post never really got seen by very many people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so you're absolutely right that the platforms do have a ton of control, and that gives them some pretty immense power over those platforms. Like I say, at the moment, things are operating pretty democratically, but certainly any of the owners of these platforms could decide to change things and really start to silence people, start to influence people's ability to make money. And I know a lot of people who are on YouTube that, they post a video that went against, what YouTube thought was proper, and then all of a sudden they got their donations shut down, and they could no longer make money from subscribers to the platform. So I don't like the fact that platforms have that much control. I don't believe they should be able to have that much control. So it's definitely an important issue.
Well, but even after, Facebook, actually, Facebook and YouTube and Google, all those are the same company. They created all those. So you're saying that our government should come in and maybe, split them up, or force them to split up or something, or what exactly?
Yeah, I think that's probably a good idea. I'm certainly no expert on that, but our country has been abysmal when it comes to what we call antitrust, allowing companies to become too big and have too much influence and to become, sort of a monopoly. So it's not just tech companies that are kind of combined. It's pretty much all of industry out there.
Mm-hmm.
One company buys up another, and then they take a big chunk of that market share, and then they can start to behave monopolistically, and that's always a bad thing for consumers, and it's not really a good thing for our economy.
Right. I see. Okay, cool. So what else is upcoming for you? What else are you working on as far as projects are concerned?
Well, the one thing that I'm excited about getting started is a program I have envisioned called Old Fogey Yoga. And I came up with this because when I was going to move up to Siskiyou County and live off the grid there, I know that there's a lot of people in that county who, like me, spent their early years in life, and if they've lived there their whole lives, and they've certainly spent their whole lives lifting firewood and hay bales every day, and they've probably caused a lot of damage to their body. And in these, your later years, it's difficult to stay fit and to manage pain while also avoiding injury. And so I wanted to come up with a program that would help people learn how to do that, how they can stay fit while avoiding injury. And I wanted to target the program specifically to people who are not the kind of people who are going to buy yoga pants and get a gym membership or a yoga studio membership, but people who basically designing the program around ways that people can find opportunities for exercise just while they go about their daily lives and doing the things that they normally do. That they don't have to go to a gym or use a specific machine, but just changing the way they have their posture when they do something that they would normally do in their everyday life. So I'm really excited about that. And I hope that, that program will help a lot of people to improve their lives.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. Wonderful. Okay. And for those people who like this conversation and they want to subscribe to your media, they want to find out more about you, what are your social media handles, please?
Let's see. On Twitter, I go with a kind of a combination of my birth name and my legal name. So there it's R. Charan Pagan, and that would be spelled RCHARANPAGAN. So that's my Twitter handle. Probably the best way of learning more about me and the things that I'm up to is to go to a website that I'm currently, it's still in progress, but it's available online already, and that is russandwatson.com.
Okay.
So Watson is my big, amazing guard dog. He's a big, sweet, lovable pit bull mix, and he's kind of been my companion these past few years in dealing with all the horrible situations that we had in Siskiyou County. So we've become very, very bonded over some of the experiences we had there. And so I created that website, russandwatson.com, to kind of talk about the corruption in Siskiyou County that we faced. But I've also put a lot of my other interests on that website, including my political interests and some of those political endeavors.
We really do appreciate our guests who participated in this episode, and we hope you learned something that will bless your day and your life. For all who are interested in learning more about the Gary Clement Radio Show podcast, please visit www.amazon.com and order my book, The Gary Clement Radio Show, When Strong Afro-American Men and Women Stand Up. It covers everything about us and features a variety of Afro-American personalities who speak out about the importance of education and literacy in the Black community. Well, we thank you for tuning into our podcast. Please send us your email address so we can contact you when we have new releases and new episodes and new projects as well. You can reach us at gccpresents@yahoo.com. And also, if you're interested in submitting any materials or want to get in touch with us, please do so by simply sending an email to gccpresents@yahoo.com. That's G as in Gary, C as in Charlie, C as in Charlie, presents@yahoo.com. So until next time, do take care. And this is a G2 Network Media production.